Hello, this is Denton Yoder, instructor for BSE 2304, the Biological Systems Engineering CAD class. In today's video, we're going to talk about blocks or symbols. And I have a good video. It's a few years old, and the insert command doesn't work the same as it used to. It's still a good video to watch, but I'm going to do an updated one here and show you drawing a few more of these things instead of having them already pre-drawn, and also show you the new insert command and hopefully help you understand a little bit about blocks. The idea of a block is anything repetitive that you use in your drawing can be stored as a block. It helps the efficiency of the drawing because whenever you use a block, the block definition, or what's in the block, is defined inside your drawing one time, and then every additional time you use the block, it just puts an insertion point, which is XYZ coordinate, scale, rotation angle, layer, and that type of thing. But all the data for the block is just a pointer back to the original block. The nice thing is if you update the block definition, every instance will update automatically. So if you have a bunch of identical objects, they're very efficient to use as blocks. When we make blocks, there is a block command which makes a block definition inside your drawing. I never ever use that because I see it as a waste. I go straight to the wblock command. The wblock command will take and create a block, but also write it out to the hard drive as a drawing. And so the way I teach it, blocks are really just little tiny drawings. And if you want to edit a block, there's multiple ways of doing it. What I used to always do is insert it at a scale of 1 so it's not exaggerated, explode it, modify it, and then redefine the block. That's one way of doing it. Another way is a block is really a drawing, so you can just open up the block as a drawing file and make any changes to it you want. When you go to reuse that block, if the block definition is already in your drawing, it'll use the one it already has. But if you browse to the file to grab it, it'll say, oh, do you want to redefine this block? And it'll update all your blocks, and plus give you a new one. So, jumping in. Symbols are used many different ways. A typical symbol, a very typical symbol, is just a small symbol representing some piece of information. Like, let's say you want to represent a manhole. Well, typically all you do is draw a circle on the screen, and we can call that a manhole. We can put intelligence on that manhole by doing either a visible or an invisible attribute definition, DDATTE, Dynamic Dialog Attribute. Oh, DDATTE is the editor. Attribute define, I think that's it. Anyway, when you define an attribute, what you'll get is a visible or an invisible piece of data. And what we used to do on a manhole is just put a manhole number. So on all the maps of all the counties all over the US, there are manhole symbols, and if you were to list them or DDATTE them, it'll tell you that there's a manhole number attached to it. And the point of that was to get the data into a GIS. So by having a manhole number attached to the drawing, we can typically visibly see the manhole number on the drawing, and then also be able to export that data to a GIS so it can pull the northing and easting information from that manhole. We used to, I'm going to say back in the 80s, we overdid this, and we put a whole pile of invisible information on the manhole as well. The rim elevation, the invert depth, the depth to any pipes that are going in or out. We'd attach all this information to a manhole. And then whenever we export this to a GIS, all that data would go right into the GIS. What we found was that was kind of cumbersome, and the maps never really got updated properly. So we've kind of cut back and just do the unique identifier or the manhole number. That way they can maintain all the rest of that information in the GIS package instead of doing it in CAD. But we used to do it all in CAD as well. Okay, well, let's draw a manhole. Now, how do you show a manhole? Well, a manhole, it's typically about a 4-foot diameter hole in the ground. Okay, well, if I do a 4-foot hole in the ground, but I'm working at 100 scale, that's going to be a pretty small hole. If an inch is 100 feet and I'm putting in something that's a 4-foot diameter, that's pretty small. Well, what we always used to do with blocks is lie. We would draw a symbol to represent that a manhole goes there, but we would draw it so that it prints an 1/8 of an inch tall, because we don't want it to take up. We want you to be able to see it easily and see what it is, but we don't want it to take up an absorbent amount of space. So what we'd have to do is, well, when we define the symbol, we would typically draw it an 1/8 inch tall. So if I want to do that, I can just say circle here, D for diameter, 1/8, and I just drew an 1/8 inch diameter circle. So that is perfect for making as a manhole. Now, to use this manhole, since it's an 1/8 inch big, I can use this manhole on any drawing. The only thing I have to know is I have to know ahead of time what scale do we intend to print the drawing. Am I going to be printing this 20 scale? Am I going to be printing this 50 scale, 100 scale? What scale am I going to print? By knowing what scale I'm going to print, whenever I use a block or insert the block, I can scale it up based on that scale factor. So this block will work on any drawing anywhere. Just a second, let me turn wiggle off. Stop wiggling. There we go. That was making my mouse jump. Okay, W block. W for W block, and it comes up and says, okay, what are you doing? What is your source? Objects. What is the base point? What are the objects? What is the name? And what are the units? Okay, I'm going to grab and pick base point, and I'm going to do CEN space to jump to the center of the circle. The objects, I'm going to select objects, and I really don't care what the checkbox down below is set to. All three of these options will work fine. But I just selected the circle. If you're selecting attributes in addition to the circle, you want them to be selected in the order that you're going to ask the question. So anyway, we'll get to that later. Now, where do you want to put them? Okay, mine wants to go to a CAD blocks folder, and it wants to call it new block. Instead of new block, I'm going to call it MH for manhole, and I'm going to set the units to unitless. If I leave the units on feet and I'm working in a feet drawing, it should work fine. But if I'm working in an inch drawing, it's going to try to scale it. And vice versa, if I set it on inches and I work on a feet drawing, it'll try to scale it. By making it unitless, I get to control the scale. And so I know exactly what it's going to do, and I don't have to guess. Okay, so I've got the object, I've got the base point, I've got the object, I've got the name, I've got the unitless, okay. And it says, do you want to export map information? It doesn't matter, yes or no. There is no map data associated with this yet. We will learn that much later in the semester, but either option's fine. So that just created a file on the hard drive called manhole. And if I do an I for insert, it's going to say, well, in this drawing you're in right now, there's a manhole. Or I can go out to the hard drive, navigate out to the hard drive and find that file, but it's already here because I just made it. Let's go manhole, click a spot on the screen, and I've got a manhole. If I want to put it at a different scale, I could say a checkbox on scale, or, which would need to ask me to scale, or I could put in an X and Y scale factor. Technically, I could do a Z too, but that really doesn't matter on a flat thing. And now, manhole, I get a 20 scale. So, or I can have it ask me. There's nothing to rotate on this one, but that's a question you get on the input. Do you want to rotate when you bring it in? I'm going to turn off this auto placement thing. I never use exploded, but I will explode one later if I want to. Right now, if I were to do a list command, li for list, on this circle, it's not a circle. It's a block reference whose name is MH. If I do an X for explode on this, boom, that block is blown up. Now if I list it, it's not a block anymore. It's saying it's an ellipse. Well, that's interesting. I thought for sure it would be a circle. Okay. Anyway. Okay, let's draw some more. Let's say I want to draw a valve. Typically, I'm going to draw an 1/8 inch valve, and I'm going to do a rectangle, and I'm going to say at 0.125, comma 0.125, which is just a little tiny square, an 1/8 inch across. What if I want it longer? Stretch this, and if I use my ortho, I can go straight and I can make it longer. I could specify how long to make it as well. This is a rectangle. I'm going to draw a line from the, not from there, undo that, from the end to the end, and draw another line from the end to the end. I'm going to explode my rectangle, and I'm going to erase these two pieces. Now I have a valve. Okay. Do I want to make it a ball valve? Oh, sure. There's a command called donut. Donut. If I set the inside diameter to 0 and the outside diameter to about like that, I can put a little donut in, and I like to draw a little line that comes up and tees over a little bit to make a handle to turn the valve, and I'm going to call that a ball valve. So W for W block, pick a base point. Do I want to put it on the end of a pipe, or do I want to put it in the middle of a pipe? It all depends how I want to use it. I'm going to say I'm going to put it on the end of a pipe. So I'm going to pick point, the midpoint, and I'm going to select objects, and I'm going to name this, instead of new block, I'm going to name it ball valve, and I'm going to set the units to unitless. So 4 things: the base point you carry it by, select the objects, the name, and unitless, and I just made a ball valve. Now whenever I do I for insert, I've got a ball valve option, and I can put a ball valve in. Now since I have scale checked, it's asking me for the scale, so I can just hit enter for 1. one for the Y, and it did 1. If I do another one, put it here, scale 2, and match it for the Y, enter, so I can insert the ball valve easily. If I want to use a valve that's defined somewhere else, I can hit the browse button and go to wherever on the computer I want to go and grab a block and insert it. I see some recent ones I made. I made a north arrow, or a couple different north arrows in a graphic scale. I probably should explain this graphic scale, but I'm going to turn that off. I'm just going to use the graphic scale one time. I'm going to just pick it, and I'm going to say, put it right here, and it says scale. 10, scale is 10, 2 times the scale is 20, 3 times the scale is 30, scale with a foot tick is 10 feet. Okay. What this is what I call a graphic scale, and it marks distances. The valid scales we have are 1 through 6 and multiples of 10 of that. So 10 scale, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 are valid scales. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600. 1,000, 2,000. You get it, hopefully. The reason those 6 scales are what is valid is because that's what my scale bar has on it. I'll bring a scale bar to class to show you, but it's got a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 on it to use to measure. And this is just a standard notation. This symbol is 4 inches long exactly. Let me just draw one. I already had one, but I'll draw another one. I'm going to draw a rectangle, and I'm going to make it at 4 inches long, comma, how tall do I want to make it? How about a 1/4 inch? 0.25. Oh, that's what happened with my scale. It was inserted with a scale of 20 automatically. Let me put those back down. Okay, much better. So this would actually be wrong. Let me delete it. Okay, so let's say I draw a bar. It's 4 inches long. If I do the distance command on it, distance from here to here, it says 4. Let me park this guy on the bottom, see if he'll stay. Okay, so that's 4 inches long. I'm going to explode the rectangle. Now it's 4 lines. Now I can use offset, so I can go 0.125 off the bottom, and I got the middle marked. Now I can go offset 1. Try that again, over offset 1. Grab the end line to the right, grab that line to the right, grab that line to the right, and that divides off the 4 1-inch increments. Now, in the one I did online, or did earlier, I'd marked what a 1/2 inch was and what a 1/4 inch was. So if I do an offset 0.5, I can offset this 1/2 inch, and I can do offset again 0.25, click to there. And now for hatching, H for hatch, I'm just picking inside, and do I not have pick point set up by default? There we go. And so I can hatch those to make them more obvious. Really on the bottom, it's just going to have text, scale equals 1 inch, blah, 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 blah. And the top, I'm going to have a 0 in the middle, or 1 inch in, and then attributes at the other edges. ATTDEF is attribute define, and I'm gonna say my tag is going to be X1. A tag is like a placeholder prompt, the question you want to ask to fill in that placeholder. What is the scale? Question mark. Default 1. And how do you want it justified? I'm going to center justify it, and I'm going to do an OK and put it just up above that starting line, and it jumped to center justified. Let me close this window so I have more screen space. So that is an attribute that I defined, ATTDEF. The nice thing is, I can copy it for the others. So I can do a copy this, and I want to copy it over directly 2 inches, 3 inches, and 4 inches. Now, if I double click that, it should give me an editor. And X1, what is the scale? Well, the base scale is the accurate answer for the first one and the second one. The third one is going to be, I'm going to change it to an X2. And what is the scale times 2? And the answer default is going to be 2. And then this third one, I'm going to call X3. What is the scale times 3? And put 3 there. And now I need some text. DT is dtext. That's the one I use a lot. Justify center. And I'm going to pick that same spot, and the text height I'm going to use is 0.125, an eighth of an inch, and the angle is going to be 0. I'm going to put a 0 there. What I just found out is I made all the other text too big. Well, if I do a Control 1, which brings up properties, I can change properties on all of those at one time. 0.125. Now they're all 1/8 inch. Okay. Now I need some more D-text on the bottom. Right there, 1/8 inch, horizontal. Scale 1 inch equals something. Enter, enter. I messed up again because that should be left justified instead of centered, because I don't need that to be centered. That can be left justified. Okay. And what I'm going to put down there, I'm going to copy this X1, and I'm going to take the F8 so I can go crooked and put it right there. But I'm going to change it. I don't know. Should I name it X4 to be different? I don't know. X4. What is the scale with a foot tick? And I'm going to make it also left justified. And I'm done with that box. But I'm going to move it a little closer. By making it left justified, it's going to display it from here to the right, so it'll be accurate. This is a graphic scale. Everybody needs to make one. W for W block. I'm going to pick a base point. I'm going to carry it by the corner here. Select objects. I don't want to just grab all the objects though. What I'm going to do is grab the pieces of text, and then I'm going to grab the attributes in the order I want to ask the questions. Enter. And I'm going to name this GR scale. And I'm going to make it unitless. Now, when I do an I for insert, I can grab a GR scale, and I need to have the scale set to, let's escape this, that needs to be 1. Okay, let's try this again. Graphic scale, pick where it goes, and it says, what's the scale? What's the scale? What's 2 times the scale? What's 3 times the scale? And what's the scale with a foot tick? Foot. Okay. And it does it. I can do it again. And I can put in 10, 10, 20, 30, 10 feet. Boom. I can do it again. Here. 100. 100. 200, 300, 100, foot tick. Bingo. It's working great. We're always going to use these in paper space, which is 1-to-1 scale, so we don't need to ever scale them. Okay, I think I've shown enough about drawing, the W block command, and the insert. I think you're ready for the second blocks video now. Take care. Bye.